The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, a sunny Monday here in Southern California. It's always Sunday when we have the commish on, the real commish, not the commish who's leaving next February, the commissioner of the NBA, as well as one of my favorite writers and a guy who is now busier than he was when he actually retired from the Boston Globe. Bob Ryan, how are you?
I'm good, Bill.
Is this what retirement is like? You just work more hours after you retire?
I said at the time it was a technical term. It simply meant that I was ceasing to be in the employee of the company I worked for 44 years. I got rid of that core obligation, but I'm simply shifting my time to do other things. I got more time for TV. I got more time for radio and speaking and traveling and so forth, but got enough going to keep me busy.
I heard I was driving around on a Saturday listening to some random Sirius station in Southern California, and you and Sean Grande and Ryan Russillo were announcing a basketball game together, which I was furious at Grande that he never told me this was happening. It was really fun. How many games have you ever announced?
Back in the late Big Three era, I did either one or two Celtic television games when I think Tommy Heinsohn was unavailable, or maybe I'm not sure whether I worked with him or whether I worked with Mike Gorman, his partner of long standing, but I did do a couple of TV games. But that was actually the first NBA, Celtic game. I'd done a few other things. I had done college BC games back in the mid '80s for a period of time with Bob Lobel, and had done a little color here and there for fun. I did a Harvard game a number of years ago. They were doing some Harvard guests, etc. So how it came about was Maxwell, who was Cedric Maxwell's the normal color man. He was being honored last Saturday night in Brooklyn as an all-time A10 great, even though he never played an A10 game in his life. Because when he went to University of Charlotte, North Carolina, Charlotte, they were not a member of the A10 at the time. But of course, he is absolutely still the greatest player in their history. And so he was honored that night, and wound up that I was invited, and Ryan we both were invited to help out with Sean on the broadcast.
Announcing games is really fun, and it just flies by, especially if you're doing it correctly. And it sounded like that was happening with you guys. The other thing, go ahead.
I give Sean a lot of credit, Grandy, because he played to us. He really did tee it up, and the game was not a big strain game. It was against Charlotte, and they took control in the second and the third quarter. But what he did was, I really thought he created a climate, if I may be totally immodest, in which I really think we did sound like three guys who were sitting around at the bar watching the game. Which I think is a good thing if you can pull it off.
Yeah, I did. When I was promoting the paperback of my book, I did a 3-man booth for a TV game with Mark Jackson and Dan Shulman. Mm-hmm. And Dan Shulman was just fantastic. And it made me think of what you just said about Sean Grande. I don't think people realize in it when you're announcing a game how much control the play-by-play guy has basically over everything. He's almost like the point guard. He's creating the style of play and making other guys comfortable. And he was just great, and he sold every joke. It was a little like professional wrestling. But it was really fun. I enjoyed it. Hey, you were the best possible person to ask this question that I can think of who is still alive. The 2013 Miami Heat and this win streak, put this in a larger scale for us. What does this mean? Is this in your top 5 greatest single season team accomplishments yet? I
believe so. I think that winning streaks at any time, undefeated seasons in college football, for example, by anybody at any level, after a while, they take on a life of their own, and the pressure becomes enormous. I don't care if you're talking about Division III or you're talking about Alabama. It doesn't matter to me. That there's an inherent pressure that builds, and in this case, there's an inherent pressure that is built, and they're chasing history. And I love the fact that they are aware of it and are very much into it. LeBron is into it. He can't conceal his delight in being part of this history, and so it's very important. I think I'm totally impressed with it. And I'm rooting for them. I like living through history, and I have nothing to protect with the 71-72 Lakers. They were tremendous, but if these guys can do it, then more power to them.
I couldn't agree more. I love streaks. I love feeling like I'm watching something that I'm going to remember 40 years from now. And I can't really remember the last time it's happened during an NBA regular season. I guess maybe, even though it was detestable, Kobe's 81-point barrage where he was just gunning at it in every possession. I still feel like I was watching history. It didn't feel totally right. Phil Jackson I thought the look on Phil Jackson's face near the end kind of described what was really happening there. But in this case, I wasn't alive I was 2 years old for the 72 Lakers. And when I was researching my book, I was so amazed by that streak, especially the fact that nobody had really come near it in the 40 years since. I mean, the closest we had was the Rockets won 22, which is basically 66% of the way there.
Right.
I never thought the streak was going to be touched. And especially the thing about the early 70s NBA, and you can speak to this better than anybody, was the league was pretty diluted at that point. They had gone from 9 teams to 17 teams in a span of 6 years. You had the ABA was pulling young players out of college and had lured guys like Rick Barry over. And the bottom line was Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain were 2 years away from the end of their careers, and yet somehow ripped off this 33-game win streak. I'm not putting it down. I'm just saying I think it was a little bit easier back then to do it than what these guys are doing now. What do you remember about those 72 Lakers?
I had to look up a lot. I mean, I remember the team in general, but the streak I did look up because I wrote about it yesterday in the Boston Globe. And it's such a different NBA world. People hear what I'm about to say. Just assure them that I am not in any way in possession or taken over by any alien substances. Okay, they averaged 121 points a game. They took 103 shots a game. They did not do this score 121 points a game with the benefit of a three-pointer. The Miami Heat average 103 points a game while taking 78 or 35 fewer shots a game, and they have the advantage of the three-pointer. And they still aren't even close to scoring 121 a game. So it tells you that there was a whole different concept of what constituted defense and how you played it and when you played it, and also what constituted offense and offensive philosophy than there is today. So almost like talking about science fiction, about World War I or the Spanish-American War. As opposed to modern warfare. That's number one. Number two is, you're right, the league was in the second year of post-expansion that had gone from 14 to 17. In the 33 games, they were 7-0 against the 3 expansion teams who were Portland, Cleveland, and Buffalo. And so that has to be taken into consideration as well. But the whole flow of the game, the whole concept of basketball at the highest level was very, very different than it is today. Today, of course, it's totally dominated by defense. People must understand that. If they don't, then they just do not get it. And it's a very, very, very different concept of how to play basketball.
One of the fascinating things about that 72 Lakers team is everybody wanted Wilt to play a certain way for so many years. And, this was a guy that always chased numbers and kind of did whatever he felt like from season to season. Near the end of his career, he actually started doing a pretty good Bill Russell impersonation, right? He became more of a role-player rebounder.
Three very distinct phases in his career. It's easily identifiable. There was the first phase, 7 years or so, when he averaged at least 35 a game, and upward, including the record 50.4 in 1961-62. But he also had years of 44 and a couple of 38s, 37s, etc.
Yep.
And for all that, he got no rings. And so in 1966-67, he reinvented himself. He became the all-around Wilt. He took fewer shots. He passed the ball a lot more, and he wound up in a back-to-back years of averaging, and the numbers are very close, so don't rounding them off. Basically, averaged 24, 24, and 8 for 2 years in a row, and 8 being assists, and led the league in assists, the only center to do so in 67-68. They won the championship in 67 with him playing this way, and in 68 they were beaten by the Celtics in a Game 7 and curious game in Philadelphia, in which he only took 2 shots in the second half, which he always blamed on the other guys, and they did not have Billy Cunningham, who was the best sixth man in basketball, along with Havlicek at that time. He had been hurt. So anyway, then he gets to L.A., and by the second year that he reinvents himself for a second and final time. This is the Wilt of 1971-72. Only taking makeable shots, hooks, dunks, complete putbacks, easy stuff, finger rolls, etc. No turnaround jumpers. He took that away, threw it away. None of that. So he only averaged 14 points a game. He concentrated on rebounding and outlet passing and passing in the half court, but outlet passing, throwing the ball out to them so they could run, and it was a completely different Wilt, and that's the Wilt that was the anchor of that team. He was the fifth leading scorer on the team at 14.8 points a game, and then that's the way he played for the last 3 years of his career. The next year, he shot 64% from the floor that year, I believe, and I know he shot 72% the final year, as he absolutely refused to shoot anything that he didn't think he could make.
Right. So he was doing a Russell impersonation.
Yeah, it was. It was a Russell impersonation, very much so, and it was, kind of a point was kind of proven. Actually, because he started it after Russell left. Ironically, the old Wilt was still the mid-phase Wilt was in evidence and of course Russell beat him in the final game, or the Celtics beat the Lakers, and Russell had 21 rebounds in his final game and was Bill Russell right to the end. So he had the last laugh on Wilt, as he usually did.
I interviewed Jerry West for our NBA show on Wednesday. We ran like 3 minutes of it, but we talked to him for probably 15. And a couple things struck me. One, he really loves LeBron. And I didn't even make this connection until he was saying it, that he felt a real connection with LeBron. All the crap LeBron took in 2010 and 2011. He's a choke artist. He can't win the big one. And I realized, like, it's a little like what Jerry's life was like in the 60s. He didn't take as much crap as LeBron did, but he couldn't get over the hump. He identified with that.
Well, that's interesting. Typical Jerry, to think the very worst that he could think about himself, which even if it wasn't true, because Jerry West is very possibly the most revered player in the history of the league, the most respected. Everybody loved Jerry West. Broke his nose all those times. Played hard, played clean, played fair, played tough, and was a noble loser to all those Celtic teams. No one expected him to win any of those series except for in '69. That's the one that hurt. Of course, he goes out with a 42-12-13 game in Game 7 in '69.
And won the MVP.
Yeah, well, he was the best player. He got 53 in the first game, and they won. He got 41 in the second game, and they won. And then he wound up getting a 43, as I said, 13-12 triple-double in Game 7, which they lost by 2 points in just a gut-wrenching, awful loss for them. But he at no point ever in his career did anyone hold him accountable for any of those defeats. In 1965, when the Celtics beat them in 5 and ended it up by scoring 20 consecutive unanswered points to open up the fourth quarter of Game 5, Jerry West averaged 40.
Right.
That's 4-0. Oh, no, even in Boston, he's the most respected, honored, beloved player that ever played against the Boston Celtics. I'm not saying the best, because clearly Jordan was the best, but he was the most beloved and respected. If people could have given an honorary ring to an opponent in the history of the Boston Celtics in 67 years, there's no doubt who they would give it to. They would give it to Jerry West. So any inference on his part that he was anything other than respected and beloved and pitied is wrong. Sorry, Jerry. Doesn't fly.
I think at the very least, I think he might identify with the getting over the hump part. But following up your point, if you go in the Sports Illustrated vault, which is fantastic, in 1969 when they wrote about those finals, and actually Frank DeFord was the one writing about it. But what struck me is after that Game 7, some of the Celtics quotes about Jerry West, like, they felt terrible for him. Like, they went out of their way to mention it. Like, I just want to mention this is great, but that guy over there, Jerry West, oh my God, he's the greatest basketball player I've ever seen. Like, it jumps out of the page when you read about it. And then the other thing I thought was interesting, Bill Russell did not go to his own retirement ceremony, but when they had Jerry West night, flew to Los Angeles and went to Jerry West night and gave a speech because he loved Jerry West so much.
This
so
amplifies my point. He's absolutely a beloved figure in the history of the league. And of course, his book was the most frightening autobiography of an athlete I think I've ever read, because, the demons are just totally terrifying with the man. And then obviously nothing's changed.
The other interesting thing he said in the interview was that when they lost the 33rd game, or the 34th game, when they had the streak going, he said it was one of the most disappointing locker rooms he'd ever been in. because they hadn't played well and they'd missed a bunch of shots, and they were they'd loved the streak so much they were just devastated that the streak was over. And I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting, because I bet nobody has been in more devastated locker rooms than Jerry West, right? Especially after 1969. That had to have been the most devastated locker room ever. That's
true. And yeah, I mean, just think 62, the Selvey shot game, and they lose in overtime, and Russell goes for 30 and 40. They could have won that year. I mean, they could have, that was the other good shot they had against the Celtics. 69, of course, was the best. Oh yeah, he was. But the streak, I looked it up, and they felt badly. They didn't play. They just didn't. They were tied at 77 midway in the third, and then they got gradually Bucks pulled away, and they had a lot of turnovers. They shot 39%. They had like 24 turnovers, which is very uncharacteristic, and they knew they played a crappy game. They wanted to go out in style. They didn't want to go out playing crappy. Now they're playing against the next best team that year in the West anyway, and against Milwaukee, and Milwaukee, of course, when the game started, that was a big deal. You can imagine today, Bill, at that point in the season, January 9th of any given year, and here come one team, namely the Lakers. They were 38-3, and the Bucks were 35-8 when that game started. You think ESPN would have had a line or a word or two about that?
And you also had Lou Alcindor before he came Kareem, and you had Wilt, and every time those two guys played, it was a gigantic deal anyway. Yeah. So now you had on top of the 33rd game.
Wilt actually outplayed him in the following year. And Wilt's last year, he actually outplayed Kareem. They knocked them out of the playoffs. Now that year, the Lakers weren't going to lose, and they didn't. They lost 3 games en route to winning the championship. And I think it bodes well for the Heat as well.
And you had West and Oscar in that game too.
Yeah.
I actually think this San Antonio-Miami game, if it gets there, which would be win number 30 for Miami, has the potential to be one of the all-time great regular season games. I mean, for some reason in my head, I'm thinking a little bit like Bears-Dolphins 1985, right? Mm-hmm. And the last time they played, Popovich rested everybody, got fined, huge thing. This time around, I think this is like a game 7 for the Spurs.
I think Popovich will recognize the spirit of the moment, the weight of the moment, not do anything stupid, or arrogant or nose thumbing at the commish or whatever he does. And I like him, by the way. I mean,
me too.
I respect the hell out of his Hall of Fame coach, but he does have his little axes to grind vis-a-vis the league. So anyway, yeah, I agree. I'm really. I mean, who among us isn't hoping that the Bucks the Heat keep it going long enough for that to have that kind of meaning? We obviously all want that.
Were you in the house for Monday's Boston-Miami game?
Actually,
Jeff Green's greatest game ever?
I stayed home and watched on TV with great interest, and that was a fine. That was an NBA night. That was a great NBA night, and the Heat. I thought the great line, after it was over, was very simple but very direct. Spoelstra, we earned it. They made us earn it, and they did.
Yeah.
And since then, the Celtics have been awful.
It was a fork in the road game for them.
They've been awful, and no one thought. I didn't think no one thought there'd be this kind of a negative carryover because they played so well and Green played so well. But once again, he remains this colossal tease. He hasn't done much of anything since then. And instead of the game that would be the breakthrough game, it's just been another great example of why he's such a frustration to them. And he obviously has talent to play the way he did on Monday night more often, if not every night. But there's something holding him back, and until someone figures out what it is, they're going to continue to be frustrated.
He's the guy that one play will either get him going or knock him out for the game. And when you see it, it's going to happen. If he gets a dunk in traffic in the second quarter, it's like, oh, here we go, Jeff Green. And then if something happens and he's embarrassed in some way or airballs a 3 or whatever, that's it. He goes the other way. He checks out. But LeBron James. So he frustrated people like you and I for years and years because he'd been giving, I called it the full car wash package, right? You go to the car wash and they have that one package that's the most expensive.
I never get it. It's much too expensive for me.
Yeah. It's got everything. It's like, whoa, I can get my tire. Oh, I get my tires done and the wax. And like, look, very few people in our lifetimes are given the full car wash package. He was given it. And for years and years, I felt like he wasn't totally taking care of it, even though he was playing hard. He wouldn't go down in the low post. He never totally figured out how to affect games like, Larry Bird would on those days when Larry's shot wasn't going in and he would just go downtown and get 18 rebounds.
Yep.
The last 2 years, something switched, and he kind of figured out that inside-outside game and how to just affect it constantly on both ends of the court. And I think he's played some of the greatest basketball the last 15 months that I've ever seen in my life. Where do you stand on this?
Yeah, and exactly when the turning point was, since he obviously bottomed out with criticism in the Dallas series. Clearly, I didn't buy it at the time. I screamed it wasn't true, but then I had to be made aware that it was true, that he was shying from the ball. Something, I don't know when, but whenever, from the moment that he decided, I realized I'm the best player on the floor, and I have to prove that, and I have to assert myself. He's been changed and into a point where, it's my opinion that he has reached a level that I call mastering the game. It's only been available to very few players in history, and it has to be players that have the full package to start with, which means that they're capable of great shooting and great passing and great rebounding and great great reaction to situations, great anticipation of situations. You got to have them all available to you, and then you learn how to calibrate your greatness to incorporate the other players and to pick your spots to affect the opponent's psyche in one way or the other. And I think Oscar was that way. He didn't have the range of these other guys, but he did it his way. Certainly Jordan was that way, and Bird was that way at times. And he was totally there for the last 3 months of 85, 86, and only because of injury could he never reach that peak again. But when he reached it, I'll submit what Bird did from February, March, April, May, and June of 1986 with anything that anybody ever did, including Jordan. And but they didn't. That's when he had it. LeBron has it now. And when you have that kind of talent and that kind of mastery, it's chilling to watch. I mean, he just knows what to do, when to shoot, when not to shoot. He can make any pass he wants. He can go get a rebound. And of course he can defend now. And but offensively is what I'm talking about for the most part. He's there. He's got it. And Kobe, of course, had it. I shouldn't say that Kobe had it. But it's an amazing thing to watch when he's at the total peak of his game. He's 28. And he's going to be this way now, barring injury, for another 4 or 5 years, as Kobe has been.
You really think Kobe was on this level? I mean, I can see it with the shooting, but with his overall impact on the game, you felt like he got to this point?
A lot of times, yeah. I mean, I do. I hate yes, I do. But I think what we're seeing now with LeBron, the whole physical package, he's such an incredible physical being, and that this is a different kind of manifestation. But I wouldn't want to leave Kobe out of this discussion, but I'll certainly, we can have a discussion, put it that way.
And you didn't mention Magic, but
no, I didn't mention Magic, which I've been hooted down, and people don't understand. Magic never could shoot with these people, never. I mean, he got to be a better shooter, and he got the little set shot down, and then he got the baby hook going up. But the point is, no one. Magic will be the first person to tell you, what, shoot like Larry? Shoot like LeBron now? Shoot like Kobe? Shoot like Michael? I never got to shoot. Well, he'd be the very first person to tell you. That's why I leave him out. It's an aesthetic argument. It's not. I mean, Magic dominated games extraordinarily well in his way, but it wasn't this way. He didn't have that final package. He wasn't going to go out and bury difficult threes or go out and get you 45. I mean, the way LeBron can. Oh no, that wasn't going to happen. That wasn't his game.
Did anyone else have the package but never get there?
No, I don't think so. Some guys may thought they did, but I don't think so. I don't think that. They're the ones that, not this way. Yeah, I mean, Elgin Baylor was, that's a whole other story. But Elgin Baylor, to a degree at times, I suppose you could say in his greatness before the injuries just ruined him, dominated games because he was a better passer than people thought, and he was obviously a great rebounder and would be a great rebounder today. No, I mean, I'm sure. No, I don't think too many. It's not available to too many people. I mean, we're talking about people that make just your jaw dropping passes as well, and that leads out almost everybody but the few people I mentioned.
The most interesting thing about what LeBron is doing, and this is something Jordan never totally got there with this just because of what his size was. LeBron is just so physically imposing, and I thought that Terry dunk, Michael had those moments too, but there's something about, he's basically Karl Malone's body, right?
Yeah, it is.
They're the same height and weight. Karl Malone might have been a half-inch taller, but think about how big of a part of a game that was for Karl Malone, just being this runaway freight train that was going to, and nobody wanted to take a charge from him. And
no question about it. You know how you probably do know that I think he's the most overrated great player in history.
Oh, well, that's a whole other argument. I'm just saying,
we'll save that one for another day.
And
but you're right, that aspect of it. Who wanted to take a charge from Karl Malone? No, you're right. Some of the 3-point plays, the conventional 3-point plays that LeBron gets, he takes massive shots, and it's like he doesn't even. But except he doesn't know it. as he either shifts hands or does whatever he needs to do to complete the 3-point play. He is the reigning master of the conventional 3-point play, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's averaging just under one a night.
Well, you talk about like some of the most physically incredible people we've seen in the league over the years, and Karl Malone was there a little bit. He was just such a big power forward, but like to me, Barkley stood out more in the sense of getting a rebound, going coast to coast, and just being this force of nature. Nobody wanted to even go near him when he had a full head of steam. I think early Shaq was like that. I wasn't there for Wilt. You were in the 60s when he was
Wilt
just
didn't do that.
running amok.
Nobody, that freight train, that 505 special Barkley, the routine of Barkley's was, in his time, it was one of the great, if not the single greatest moment in the NBA.
I agree.
For me, was Barkley ripping one down and taking off to the other end and finishing. Yeah, absolutely. He was extraordinary. I mean, he's not 6'5". He was a 6'4" and change power forward who, was just a unique stylist, the way he did it. And, just phenomenal. Best all-around rebounder of his time, offensively and defensively combined. There's an awful lot to be said for Charles, but when he, Michael had to remind him who was who in '93, and he did, and as he did with everybody. That foolish Clyde Drexler who's still out there whining in Jack McCallum's book about he's underappreciated and all that. I mean, stop it. Just don't embarrass yourself. Keep your mouth shut.
The other thing that I think LeBron's hit, I always thought Pippen was going to be the best perimeter defensive player I ever saw. Just the things that he did, especially if you were watching in person, watching him and Jordan together, especially in 96, that 72 win season when the league was pretty weak at that point. And these guys were a 2-man wrecking crew and would just say to themselves, let's go get some steals in this quarter. Let's see what happens. And LeBron has pushed himself to that level, I feel like. Even yesterday, watching the Charlotte game, Byron Mullins hit a shot or two. And LeBron clearly decided, like, that's it. He's not scoring again. And was standing next to him and just kind of blanketed him. But the fact that he's been able to just day to day take on that challenge and say to himself, we're winning tonight, and I'm going to be the best player, and I'm going to play 42 minutes. The fans came to see me. I think that's been really cool. Think about what state the league is in right now. We have a preponderance of those guys, right? Don't you feel good about the NBA right now?
Yeah, I do. I wish there were more of them in the East.
True.
The imbalance is not good, and it's really bad because Miami. To me, I'm calling a 4-5 for Miami to get to the finals, and then get a little test from somebody and from any one of the 3 or 4 people that will give them a test. I don't think they're winning the finals in any fewer than 6. But
well, they caught some breaks. Let's be honest. Like Derrick Rose not coming back.
Yep. And
then not just that, but Chicago really choosing to make this a transition year. I thought they should have signed Omer Sheik and figured out what to do later. They're the third biggest market in the league. It's hard for me to believe that they're that worried about the luxury tax. They just let him go. That guy was an asset. They let Korver go for nothing. And I don't totally blame Derrick Rose for not coming back because I wouldn't risk it with the team they have anyway. Then you have the Rondo injury, pretty fortuitous. I'm not saying the Celtics team would have won the title, but that's a team that loves playing Miami and at least would have given them a series. And then Indiana, they lose Danny Granger. It doesn't seem like he's ever going to be back this season at where he was. I just don't think they have enough scoring. The Knicks are falling apart, which we kind of thought was going to happen because they were too old. That's part of it, right? You catch some breaks, and that's how it goes.
Yeah, you can go down and annotate, right. The Chicago, they were my pick before the season, assuming that Rose would be back by All-Star game. Just a logical assumption. And that they were my pick to be their opponent in the Eastern Conference Finals and to give them a chance to to have a puncher's chance of pulling it off. But obviously that's not a history. This is nobody you can identify. The one team that is a kind of an outlier, a wild card to me in the East, simply because the first five is on paper still pretty good. Not that I think they're going to challenge the Heat, but they might be the team that could at least give them some difficulty. I hate to say it, Brooklyn. But that first five is impressive if they get healthy. I mean, I know they still have issues. Johnson now is hobbling, and Williams is finally back and all that. But Brooks Lopez, will score against them. He will, because they don't. That's not their strength, is defending a scoring big man.
It's so funny you mentioned this, because I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a huge hoop fan, and we had the Brooklyn conversation this weekend, which I couldn't believe we were even having. But you're right. Darren Williams has been much better the past 6 weeks. I don't think he's a franchise guy, but he's at least been closer to being an all-star. And Lopez is a real problem for a team like Miami. Joe Johnson's not going to be afraid of Wade. And then Gerald Wallace, a few years ago, used to be able to stop LeBron, or at least give him some trouble. Now it's a different version of Gerald Wallace. But you're right. On paper,
yeah,
they have the most things that you would think would give Miami problems. I agree with you, though. I really think it could be 4-4-4.
I admit I'm reaching, because I'm trying to find somebody that would enliven the West Eastern Conference playoffs in a little bit. I'm trying to find somebody. I mean, I guess it's too early to completely dismiss and utterly spit on the Knicks, as their chances. But I mean, I've been on the verge of that for weeks. But I'll give them a little bit of benefit of doubt. We'll see what we see tomorrow night when they come here. But other than that, no. I mean, the Indiana is the 2013 version of those late 80s Hawks. I'm repeating myself here. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. They're the team that drinks the milk to the bottom of the glass. They look both ways before crossing. They study hard, and they still get a B. And they're not. They're nice and cute, but but stop it. Atlanta. No, I'm not touting them, but I'm going to give them credit. They're better than people think, and Al Horford is the best kept big man secret in the league, I think. And but there's nobody. The Celtics, stop it. Nobody's going to get in Miami's way. I'm sorry, not easy.
Yeah, as a homer of a Celtics fan, I wouldn't mind seeing a Celtics Heat series, just because I don't think the Celtics will be afraid. They'll win.
They wouldn't be afraid.
They'll win one game and get everyone excited, but they're a big guy short. And KG already is starting to break down, which was the biggest fear with the Celtics team. Everything looks fine on paper until KG's either hobbled or not playing. And then it's like, that's when the house of cards happens. But I think the second best team in the East would be the sixth best team in the West, which is a problem.
Yeah, I'd say that's very accurate. And it's too bad, because the way the playoffs are constructed, and it's really a shame. And it's unfair. The West is going to be complete fratricidal warfare, and the East is going to be this low-level JV tournament, waiting for the Heat, just going through the motions, but just dispatching them in a bum of the month club deal until they get, which isn't going to be beneficial to them before they get to the finals, I might add.
So the Nuggets, who have been really growing on me the last few weeks, they're trying to do something unconventional. I guess the two comparisons would be the 04 Pistons, who didn't have a true star, but the pieces fit, and they had a good coach and knew what they were doing and played a certain style that teams had trouble dealing with. And then the 89 Pistons, which I don't think is a totally fair example, because Isaiah Thomas is much better than anybody on this Nuggets team. But those were kind of the two bullpen by committee teams that won titles. This Nuggets team, everybody says, they don't have a go-to guy. They're too young. George Karl in the playoffs. People are throwing this stuff out. Meanwhile, they're rolling off wins. And what I like about them, two things actually. They play really well against Oklahoma City, which is crucial because that's going to be their round 2 opponent. But also they get people to play the pace they want to play. They're always about 7% faster than the other team wants to go. And they just have a way of, when the Celtics play there, and the Celtics were playing really well at that point, they made the Celtics go about 8% faster than they wanted to, and the Celtics wore down. Do you believe in this Nuggets team?
I think they're very, very dangerous, and they've got a real honest-to-God coach. I'll tell you right now. And the young legs factor are good middle, prime of life legs, with only Andre Miller not being in that category among anybody who plays. And look what he did the other night when Lawson didn't play. He came up with a 20. I've never been a huge fan of his, but he sure. And by the way, I can never look at him without thinking of Richard Pryor. I mean, it's just to me. Even though after all these years, I smile every time I look at him.
Yeah,
and it's uncanny. But anyway, I love him. I love Fareed. I love Fareed. The glimpses I saw of Fareed in college, and those rebound numbers he got, I loved him. And I'm just, to me, he's a second coming of Millsap. It's a little different body, but anyway, I love him. And Gallinari, when I saw him play a great game against the Celtics before the trade was made a couple years ago, and could see what he could do. Yeah, I do like them a lot. And of course, when a team is that dominant at home, you're going to that series. You're going to have a hard time. Anybody, even the Heat, would have a hard time winning in that place the way they are now.
Well, that's the fear.
They're for real, no question.
That's the fear if you're Oklahoma City, right? You're the 2 seed. Somehow it's 3-2. You're down, and you have to go Game 6 in Denver.
No.
That's your worst case scenario.
And your head will explode. And the people. No, it's great. I'm happy. I mean, Denver. Denver's had a nice, interesting NBA history. From the minute they came into the league, and the great Doug Moe years were fun. They were the great circus. It was fun. But I do like them. And I'll say this, Bill. Sometimes you are right, and sometimes you are so wrong that you should go to confession. And I did not think Ty Lawson was anything more than a little squirty backup point guard roster filler.
Wow.
1,000,000,000% wrong.
What do you think of this Oklahoma City team?
I think the Harden thing is up. The jury's still out until the playoffs, and that decision. But if it came down to they had to choose between Harden and Ibaka, which I assume that was what it came down to for the future, I can't fault that. But boy, every time Harden, like every night, when I look up and see that 29, that 33, that particularly I see that old-fashioned Dantley box score. By the way, I thought of you when I saw Dwight Howard's great.
Oh, Dwight Howard had a Dantley. That's your phrase, though. You created that.
Well, I thought of you because you gave me credit for that, and you're the first person I thought of. I hope Simmons took note of the fact that we have the first true Dantley in years, years. That box score. No, because 928-46 is the great Dantley box score. This one was very close. And anyway, I digress somewhere along here.
Wait, hold on. The Harden trade.
I think they're not as good as last year as they were a year ago with Harden, and I don't think that they're going to be good enough. And we all know they can't beat Miami. So
I hated the Harden trade. I thought they should have waited till the summer to figure it out and gone for Gusto. There was a period during the season when it seemed like maybe it was going to be fine, and the fact that they had removed Harden from the equation gave Westbrook more responsibility and they're better off and all that stuff. But man, watching them lose that second Denver game really made me think, here's the real problem. They didn't get anybody for Harden who was a real blue chip asset for this year. Kevin Martin's a good player. He's a guy, he'll give you the 14 and he's a good offensive player and he's maybe the fifth best guy on a really good team. But they didn't get anything for the other two assets they got aren't helping them this year.
No.
So it was a downgrade. They went from James Harden to Kevin Martin. That's a downgrade.
Yeah, it is.
There's just no other way to look at it. And, when you think like they got this Toronto pick in next year's draft, everybody thinks this is the worst draft in 13 years. So congratulations. You're picking ninth in that draft. If Jeremy Lamb doesn't work out, they gave away a blue chipper, a top 12 player, and didn't really get anything back. And I think like the parallel for me would be, remember in the early 80s when the Knicks were trying to sign McHale when he was a free agent. Red did the thing where he signed Sly Williams and who else was it? Marvin Webster and Roy Sparrow. He signed three guys to try to get. Yeah, he did.
Marvin Webster and he put the offer sheets out there in a preemptive strike.
Right.
Remember that? I lived through that one. That was fun.
Well, think about in the current rules, if the Celtics had the mindset that Oklahoma City had, they would have traded McHale. And I don't think the Celtics win titles in 84 and 86 if you had gone from Kevin McHale to say, I don't even know who the comparison would be, but somebody who's 50% as good as him. And that's basically what Oklahoma City did. It's really hard for me to believe they're going to recover
well,
from
yeah,
that.
when they did
title.
it, I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt on a simple reason of who they, how they run the franchise so well.
Yes, agree.
And how well he's run the franchise, and he must know what he's doing, kind of thing. But I think we're on the same page on this one.
Yeah, I mean, the feeling I got from them was that they really loved the deal, and they loved Lamb, and they loved the lottery pick they were getting, and they just felt like it was a great package. They had to jump at it. But I'm always and this is something Patriot fans go through every year. I'm always of the position of go for it when you have the window, and you look at the Patriots now, and they keep rolling over these 12-win teams that lose in the playoffs. And now they have a 36-year-old QB and a 61-year-old coach. And what are we rolling over to? At some point, go for it.
Yeah, they went for it. We know they went for it in 07.
Yes.
And they did exactly what you're suggesting then, going for Randy and doing the things they did that year. And certainly they came within 30 seconds of pulling it off. But, yeah, that's true. I think you seize your opportunities, absolutely. And, they're paying the price. They will pay the price, I think.
I wanted to ask you about Bill Russell because I did that documentary with him a month ago, and he really opened up for whatever reason. And I was just astonished by just the depth of his emotions toward Boston and his experience there. And you know him well enough to know this, that he's one of those guys you get one chance with him. And if somebody screws up that chance, they're out. And that's just that's just the prism that he looks at life with. Now he's getting this statue this year. He's going back finally. I'm glad it's happening. I think deep down somewhere in the recesses of his soul, he's glad it's happening. He'd never admit it. When you think about Russell's relationship with Boston at this point, what should have gone differently these last 30 plus years? Well,
we're 14 years past a nice tribute night in the Garden, and that was supposed to rectify some of the omissions over those years. It's such a different city and different people now. I mean, I came here he had 5 years left in 1964, and I was really kind of oblivious to some of the social circumstances of the city. As a student at D.C. for a couple of years, I didn't pick up on it too well. But I find out the history, the shocking history of some of the stuff that went on in the early days with him buying the house, the feces on the wall, a lot of stuff, and of course, in Russell's reaction, was to just soldier on in his own way and ignore anything he wanted to ignore and do everything his way, as opposed to Sam Jones and Casey Jones were willing to go out and try and show people that they're really nice guys and you should and by the way, in parentheses, you'd like me. Russell didn't care if you didn't like him. He's publicly said, "I only owe the public a performance. I owe him nothing else." And he gave him that, and he's comfortable as today, I think, in his own skin as he's been his entire life, which means totally. And I don't think he would have changed anything that he did because he felt he did it his way. Time heals a lot of stuff, and I think certainly the current people, younger people, did not live through that era. They know what we tell them about how he's evolved. I think we, the media, people that know him a little bit, and hopefully painted a picture of the right picture of him as a proud, dignified, strong, willful person. And if you want to put some other adjectives in there, haughty, condescending, arrogant, they're all part of the package. But at times, my own relationship with him is that I have no idea if I ran into him in the next 5 minutes, if he'd say hello or he'd walk right by me. I don't know. He can turn his charm on and off, as you say. You got to get the moment. He's a faucet guy. I mean, he just turns it on, turns it off, turns it on, turns it off. The night back in '99, I sat with him for 3.5 hours at a restaurant in Providence to get the material for the big feature that I was going to write in conjunction with this ceremony. And he was the 100% charming, storytelling, cackling, gleeful, insightful Bill Russell. The greatest interview you could possibly have. And yet I knew that the next day, if I walked across, he might just look right over me. That's just the way he is.
You know, it was one of the things I learned spending the whole day with him, because we filmed for 3 hours and then we spent another 2 at his kitchen table. And, you know, I do think there's some real bitterness to this day. He's funny because on the one hand, he says he doesn't care what people thought of him, right? That's part of his package. I just played the game. I only care about what my teammates thought. But then he has these little petty slights that he's carried for 50 years. Like, it still bothers him that when Bob Cousy retired, people thought the Celtics were finished. You know, he brought that up 3 different times during the day. When in his basement, he has like 12 or 13 things that are framed. One of the things is a Boston Herald piece right after the Celtics won the title in 1986. And that was when, you remember, that was the height of Larry Bird is the greatest player ever and all that stuff. Larry Bird gave this interview to the Herald, and he said basically, Bill Russell is still the greatest player ever. I'm just honored to be in the discussion, but just know Bill Russell is the best player ever. Russell has that framed in his basement. And I just think this is all part of a bigger package. I think it really bothers him that he doesn't get the credit that you know he rightfully deserves for being the guy who was responsible for 11 titles in 13 years and an Olympic gold medal and 2 NCAA titles. He's the greatest winner of all time. And so he claims he doesn't care about it, but I think he cares about it.
Through no fault of his own, he got placed in Boston, a city that wasn't basketball hip when he got there. If he had been in New York, everything would have been different. Philadelphia, everything would have been different in terms of the adulation. Boston Celtics were had a cult following that filled the building during the regular season almost never in those days, and then would do so in the playoffs. It was a cult following, and when it was over, I started covering the team the year after he retired. They were averaging 7,000 people a night, and there was no residual fan base, a very small residual loyal fan base that really appreciated what had just taken place here in Boston. I think he figured that out, I'm sure, very quickly, and maybe he hoped in the beginning it would change, but it never did change. And it just didn't. And then I'm sure he observed that the crowd started to come when they got a new white star, namely Dave Cowens, and that changed things. I think he could put some 2 and 2 together there, and draw some conclusions that he wasn't too happy with. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to think on the fly here, but try to get inside him. But I'm sure he's observed all that stuff. And then of course the fact that when Bird was at his zenith, as you well know, the town you could argue they were number one for a while, even with the Red Sox going to the World Series in '86. It was that way, and he probably was saying wait a minute, remember us, and boy they were good, and they were phenomenal, and what they did was stupendous, and especially winning in '69, and so yeah, sure, all that's part of the package. You left out. And he mentioned this specifically when Bobby Orr showed up in the mid-'60s. And all of a sudden, the Bruins started selling out. Meanwhile, the Celtics had just won 8 straight titles. Yeah, of course. Well, then by that time, he'd been around Boston long enough to know. He had observed the Bruins were outdrawing the Celtics all throughout the '60s when they were continually in last place. And, of course, when Orr showed up, it was over. I remember being excited by crowds of 10,000, making references to good crowds of 10,000 at the Garden in circa 70, 71. And making comparisons to Bobby Orr at Bruins at the crowd, kind of thing, hoping to get that kind of spin-off attention. Orr turned 65 and has a book coming out this year. In case you wanted to feel old, still the greatest hockey player of all time, right? Thank you. I just get so amused when people assume because Gretzky scored all those points that he's the greatest player. When the essence of hockey is hitting and being hit, and he did neither. I mean, so to me, he's out of the discussion. It's down to Orr and the same 2 people, Orr and Gordie Howe. I mean, those hockey players. I mean, it's the whole, once again, another sport that's changed, But I mean, Orr comes along and 20 goals was a good season for anybody, and 30 points for a defenseman was like a basket hanging, and Orr ranked up 100, and while winning the Norris Trophy. So, and I talk about walking in and completely changing the idea of what's capable and possible in your game. No one shot before Babe Ruth. I mean, it's just Ruth and, of course, Russell with the shot blocking. But this is almost like with Babe Ruth when he put the home run in as a focal point of baseball, what Orr did. And the colossal ignorance, including people that absolutely ought to know better, not to understand that Orr is still the greatest player. It amazes me. In fact, of all the opinions I have on the sport of the Big Four I know the least about, my firmest one is that Orr is the greatest hockey player. That's true.
Well, it's really hard to argue with somebody who completely changed how five guys played hockey.
No.
And,
so anyway,
and broke records that nobody could have dreamed would have happened, and it still holds up on YouTube. And I don't feel like it's a homer pick. I still feel like I would feel the same way if he played on Chicago or Montreal or wherever. Like, it's just evidence. It was defenseman played one way. He came in, everybody played a different way. And unfortunately, the knee injuries. And
it's like so many people of that time, right? If modern medical science, he would have been snipped easily the first time around, and nothing. He never had any more problems, and said he was done at 30. And it's just, he's not the only one, but he's the most celebrated example of what might have been.
That would be a good Grantland column for you after you finish your book. When you make your Grantland freelance debut, your 50 greatest knee injury tragedies. It's like Gus Johnson would be surprisingly high, right?
No, Gus Johnson. You talk about a player ahead of his time. If Gus Johnson would be perfectly at home with the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles, I mean,
people think we're talking about the announcer Gus Johnson. By the way, they have no idea there was another Gus Johnson.
He'd happily take those lobs from Comer, throw them down backwards, one hand, looking. Oh my God! But Gus Johnson was a total ahead of his time player. I underestimated him and how long he was. He was better longer than you think. Sometimes you have it in your head he was only good for 3 or 4 years. No, he had about 9 good years. He was a great player.
Last question, then you got to go do all the stuff you're doing. So just the pantheon right now in hoops. We all know all know relatively who the names are. How far has LeBron creeped up here?
Oh, I'll tell you how far. That's this is a layup. This is Tim Wakefield 3-0 fastball with me getting the green light. My traditional answer to the all-time starting five for several years has been Russell, Bird, Duncan, Magic, and Michael. I mean, that's like no problem. The only question was who's the other forward next to Larry. Used to be Baylor, and for me, and then it became Duncan. LeBron's there now. I mean, because might as well put him there now because he's going to be there eventually. I mean, he's there. So in terms of the all-time starting five, he's on my all-time starting five. In terms of actual pecking order of players, which is different because 3 of the best 5 players who ever played have to be centers. That kind of changes the argument. That's a different matter. But all-time starting five, I'll take him right now. He led Bird, and James, and Russell, and Magic, and Michael, and you can name any 5 you want, and I'll take you one very happily.
So you were the creator of the Alien. Alien game.
The Walton thing is the different. That's the Walton thing. I am the one. If I had one pick of all time for one game or one series, healthy, I'd take Bill Walton. But I can't give him the nod for the career. But right. I say if we're engaged in a series with an alien invader and the loser goes into servitude for all eternity. In the 7-game series or 1 game, whichever you want, the first pick that I've had of anybody that has ever laced up a pair of sneakers would be a prime of life, healthy Bill Walton.
Wow, after all these years.
Oh, because nobody's come along that affects the game equally as at the highest level at both ends of the floor the way Bill Walton did. In other words, he's the control tower through whom you run your offense and you run your defense. He's a better offensive player than the players who are better defensive players. Not many. Russell for one. And he's a better defensive player than the players who are better offensive players. And so that's an easy one. And plus, he's one of the handful of greatest passing centers of all time. You run your entire offense through him, and his rebound technique is maybe the greatest of all. It's just no question. But it's just so tragically sad for him that he didn't get to enjoy the fruits of his labor. His talent was not on display often enough due to these horrible injuries. But his best, to me, was the best and remains the best.
So you have, for the 1 game against the Aliens, Bill Walton, LeBron James, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and Michael Jordan.
Yes.
That's a pretty good team.
Yes.
I think that team would know how to play with each other.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Can you imagine? I mean, the way LeBron is now playing with Larry and Magic and oh my God. I mean, come on, it would just be. And Michael, that to me, yeah. And plus, you've got, that's just. I don't think it's 70 plus. It's there. That's it.
Barkley said something interesting on TV a couple weeks ago. They were talking about LeBron or they were talking about, great point guards. And he said, Chris Paul had a chance to be the greatest pure point guard or whatever he said. And somebody said, what about Magic? And Barkley got mad. He's like, Magic wasn't a point guard. He didn't have a position. And he goes, there's only two players ever who just didn't have a position, Magic and LeBron. You could put those guys anywhere. It didn't matter where they played. I thought that was a really interesting point.
Well, it's an interesting one, but the fact is that he did play a point guard.
Well, he did.
Very technically. But you're right. Oh, look, I covered the game in 1980. It's one of the most singular nights I've ever had, watching him beat the Lakers, beat the Sixers that night. I can just tell you the dynamics of that from a media viewpoint. Kareem had gotten hurt. He stayed home in L.A. We're going back to Philadelphia for Game 6. And the only thing we talked about was where we're going to go for dinner when we go back to L.A. for Game 7. There was just no possibility that the Sixers weren't going to win that game. And Magic had very vastly different ideas about that, and had 42-17 and 15-7, and scored baskets in every which way possible, and dominated the game. But of course, my favorite little subplot of that game, and I know you must know this, is that Keith Wilkes, then Keith Wilkes, had the quietest 37 points in history.
Right. Well, it's like in the Willis Reed game. What did Frazier at 35? Nobody remembers.
36 and 19. That's
36.
All.
Yeah, 36-19. Just was a footnote in the game for the two Willis jump shots. The other thing about Magic was in '82 when they still had Norm Nixon, which was a really good Laker team, and they almost I think they might have even swept the first couple rounds before the finals. Magic was playing four positions that whole season. They were using him at power forward some games, for me, him and LeBron are the two that just they defy all logic with positions.
I call them the ultimate Coach K players because, as we all know, he does not have a system. And,
right.
He just teaches how to play basketball, and his system is who's on my team this year. Here's how we're going to play this year.
Right.
That's coaching, and I think that would make Magic and LeBron his ultimate players.
Bob Ryan, you're happy with everything right now? It sounds like you're doing great.
It's going very, very well, and busy, but good busy. It's my own choosing. I've got the peace of mind that I sought to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and that's it.
Excellent. I'm glad you were still cranking it after all these years. I really find it hard to believe there's ever going to be a year when you calm down. I just see it going you're like LeBron. I just see it going infinitely.
Well, I still love sports. I still like to go to things. I still like to watch and see new things. Now, if you would have told me a week ago that appointment television for me and for many of us next weekend would be a game involving Florida Gulf Coast.
I know.
Come on. But that's what makes sport. That is one of the countless things that makes having a life involved in sports and an interest in sports so pleasurable in the realm of human existence. Because there is always something new coming along.
You know what I love most about Florida Gulf Coast, among all the obvious stuff, is the fact that they just were just carefree. I'm tired of watching these college basketball games, like the Temple guy, who's a very good coach, but the biggest possession of the game yesterday, they dribble the ball for 25 seconds aimlessly. He calls timeout with 10 seconds of the shot clock. They have trouble inbounding the ball. They get a terrible shot, and it's the overcoaching in college hoops is the thing that always jumps out when I'm watching it. And I appreciate that Florida Gulf Coast, it's almost like they're like Gabe Kaplan with the fast break team from 1979. They just go out and do their thing. Maybe
the moral of the story is that when you're married to a supermodel, your life is very carefree. I don't know. But
you just let it fly.
Right. They are that way. And well, you just open up the door for another 3 hours about me.
Yeah, we'll save it for another time.
Strangulation of coaches. That's for the next time.
Yeah, it's just nice to see a team that had the balls to throw an alley-oop, right in the round one game as it's collapsing and just completely stop the momentum of the other team. I've enjoyed that more than anything.
No question.
Bob Ryan, thank you for the time. As always,
Bill.
We appreciate it. See you down the road.
So long. Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to call my buddy JackO just because I want to make fun of him for the Vernon Wells signing. But before we do that, let's take a quick break and hear from Subway.
Get to Subway pronto for the Italian collection featuring the zesty Italian BMT, Modulicious Meatball Pepperoni Melt, and the Chicken Pizzola Melt. Try them all layered in melty provolone. Subway, eat fresh.
All right, we're going right to him. He's on the phone. My buddy JackO, diehard Yankee fan, in mourning today because his team decided to give Vernon Wells 2 years, $13 million. Johnny, why are they torturing you?
I have no earthly idea. It doesn't. I don't know. I don't know why they're doing this to me or to anyone else for that matter.
So to recap, you let Russell Martin go.
Yeah.
Over roughly the same money, and then right before the season, you signed somebody who's been one of the biggest disasters in Major League Baseball for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, the Vernon Wells contract, I mean, people talked about what an albatross that was around the Angels' neck and what a disaster it is. And the Yankees already have a larger albatross anchor around their neck in A-Rod's contract. I guess they figured, let's just consolidate all the bad contracts in one spot.
Oh, that's interesting. Like, I'm trying to think of the right word that would have albatross in it. An albatrosity?
An albatrosity. Very good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Although,
that's
I mean, they're not, obviously they're not on the hook for the bulk of his contract with which Artie Moreno is still going to foot the bill for. But I mean, $12 million for the carcass of Vernon Wells. I mean, I don't know what it tells me. I guess it tells me that maybe the injury to Teixeira is worse than they expected, and they're worried they're not going to have him back for a longer period of time. And they're worried they're not going to have any pop, and so they figure we'll take a shot with Vernon Wells and maybe we'll get something. But I mean, even though they're not going to pay a majority of his contract, they're still paying him $13 million over 2 years, which is about $12,900,000 too much.
What I hate about moves like that is he's going to be there a month from now, right?
Who is?
For that Vernon Wells trade, I'm pretty sure that deal's going to be there a month from now. So
yeah, right.
Why not just wait a month and see if there's anything better?
Right. I mean, I don't understand that. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, and I don't understand it. Like the fact that you're desperate to get under $189 million before the luxury tax in 2014. Now you're taking on $13 million more, and he's not going to give you enough production over what you would get from one of the minor league guys that you're gonna punch in there for a month. I just don't get what the upside is, and what worries me, it scares me to the bone, is that they think somehow this is like throwing meat to the Yankee fan who's grown up in the last 20 years and thinks that we have to have an all-star at every position, and somehow that Vernon Wells is going to satiate that desire. I just don't get that.
Oh, it's going to satiate a desire, all right. But unfortunately, it's going to be my desire to watch the Yankees stink.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think some of the reaction about, it's desperate and what have you, and I can't quite figure it out, and I don't know why you would take on the salary when you're in salary cutting mode, and it's Vernon Wells, for the love of God. But I mean, and I know he's had a good spring, but you can never base anything on spring training numbers because you're hitting against AAA guys, AA guys, and guys that are going to be an accountant a year from now. So I don't put much. I know he's got 4 homers and 36 at bats, whatever, but I don't put a whole lot of credence in that, quite frankly.
Hey, Johnny,
I hope to God they don't either.
What color Jackie Bradley Jr. jersey do you want me to get you? Do you want the home, or do you want the away? Do you want the spring training? Like what would you wear the most?
Speaking of inflated spring training stats against guys that will be in accounting next year,
settle
he was
down,
my
Johnny.
favorite Martin Short character on Saturday Night Live, though.
Jackie Bradley. I know. I want to call him the jackpot wad. Would anybody get that joke?
His autobiography was just moving.
Can't they do the what?
I know. I think that actually, what I read about him in the Boston Globe, I mean, not only are they going to waive the 5-year period for the Hall of Fame, they might just put him in the Hall of Fame right now.
We actually were making the bust as it speaks. You know what's great? The Red Sox really.
Has the guy ever been elected to the Hall of Fame before he's played an inning in the majors? I'm not sure.
No, this is going to be the first time.
Nice.
You know what's great is this was going to be a catastrophe of a spring training for the Red Sox, and people were so bummed out about this team. And then it only takes one prospect to get people excited in spring training to just completely transform how you felt about the team. Now I'm all in. I want some Jackie Bradley now. Put him in left.
There you go. You got to have something to hope for. You got Ellsbury's hurt now, and J.D. Drew's brother is hurt, and Big Poppy can't run to first. So you need some sunshine there.
That's not true. Big Poppy can absolutely jog to first.
Oh, he can.
He just can't run fast to first, but he can jog there.
I hadn't been updated on his progress. That's good news then.
And don't forget about the Flying Hawaiian.
Yeah, Shane Victorino.
Yeah, our clubhouse is in phenomenal shape. You should see like the card games are really lively. The reporters are happy.
Everybody's got nicknames and handshakes down. It's good.
Yeah. I don't know if he's the handshake consultant. I got to research that.
You really lost something there when you lost Victor Martinez.
Well, you're never going to replace 25 different handshakes. You're just not. I wonder in the NBA, they don't really have that. I guess maybe they have like a chest bump consultant or something.
It's easier in the NBA though, because there's only 12 handshakes you need to memorize, right?
Yeah, but they get chests involved.
Yeah.
They're jumping into each other, which can get a little complicated. Then they have to. It's an interesting question. I would think you're right. 25 handshakes should be tougher to recommend, especially the ones Victor was doing, because he was doing like weird fist bumps and all kinds of stuff in there. Hey, Johnny, how nice is it to have a March Madness without UConn involved?
It's good. It's very subdued in Connecticut. It's hard to find information about it because coverage of the women's team kind of dominates everything. So it's hard to find things to read about.
But the women's team isn't even like one of the top two favorites, right?
No, they're down now. Notre Dame, I think, beat them in the regular season a couple times, and then Baylor's good because they have that woman who's the center or whatever, who's great.
Griner.
Yeah, that's it. She could dunk, right?
Brittany Griner.
Yeah.
The Bill Russell of women's college basketball.
That's right. She dominates. She's more like the Wilt Chamberlain of women's basketball, I think. She dominates, changes the game.
She's pretty frightening. I've actually kind of enjoyed watching Baylor, the women's team. It's fun to watch her just like lay the smackdown on these other teams.
Yeah,
she's like a one-man tornado.
I'll take your word for it.
It's pretty impressive. Baylor Notre Dame is actually a sporting event that I would watch. I was totally into the Florida Gulf Coast thing because it's the closest thing we've ever come to replicating Fast Break with Gabe Kaplan that I can remember. It's just.
Are you going to enjoy it as much when we learn down the road that something's? I mean, I heard yesterday they only been playing Division I basketball for 2 years.
Oh yeah, the coach had to have been getting paid $50 a win like Gabe Kaplan did, and I think their point guard is named Preacher.
Aren't we going to learn something down the line that's going to really sully the Cinderella story though? I mean, I'm just spitballing here. I'm speculating, but. Do you think it's weird to go from no basketball team to the Sweet 16 in 2 years without some transgressions involved?
Oh, I'd say there's 100% chance something's off here. In
Fast Break, I read about this college. It was founded in 1991. It was supposed to be like only online, but it didn't actually open until 97.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
all
not
true,
really like
Johnny.
the Harvard of the South.
In Fast Break, DC Dacey was actually wanted for some crime. And he was kind of hiding out. And then when they started playing, then all of a sudden they got media attention. And then the police realized it was the same DC Dacey they'd been looking for. And they had to strike a deal before the big game to let him play the game before he went to prison.
See, I know you're an aficionado of Fast Times.
Fast Break.
Yes. I was more of a Fish That Saved Pittsburgh guy.
I know. Well, there were two camps.
Basketball movies.
There were two camps.
Which was really Julia Irving's finest acting performance, I think, personally.
Listen, anytime you can have a 5-minute slam dunk sequence on a date, or you take your date to the playground and you dunk for her with 70s music, I'm not going to argue against that. I love Fish That Saved Pittsburgh as well. Plus I wrote about this in my book. The Lakers were in the final scene, but for some reason Kareem was only in the first half of the game. Like he must have had to leave.
Oh, really?
So in the second half of the game, there's no Kareem.
He was shooting Airplane on another set.
He stormed off the set. He must not have liked something that happened. I've always wanted to find out what happened in the second half to Kareem.
The behind-the-scenes drama of the Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. That's the book that needs to be written.
How much of the tournament did you watch?
Well, I took, in the fine American tradition, I took Friday afternoon off, and I went out and had a few beverages and watched a lot of Friday afternoon. I didn't catch much of Thursday because I stayed at work. I figured, save it for Friday and roll right into the weekend. And then I watched a good portion of it over the weekend. I like the NCAA tournament. I like the gambling bracket aspects of it. And, I like watching a little bit of all the games.
You're in the pool, right? The bracket pool?
Not with you guys, no.
We had,
that must have got lost, like my invitation to come out to Los Angeles.
You weren't in the pool?
No, my God, I'm barely hanging on here, Grantland. This is troubling.
Would you have been in the pool?
I imagine I've been in it in the past.
The knockout pool?
Oh, no, I don't know. I've been in some pool where I had to send my picks in to somebody.
No, we didn't have that one. We had the knockout pool. I don't know why you weren't in it, though. I went off last year's list. You must not have been in it.
This is hurtful.
This is really awkward. I don't even know what to say anymore.
Let's move on.
We had
college basketball is not the same, though. And
I don't think you didn't want to be in it.
But what's that?
You didn't want to be in it a couple years ago. That's why you weren't on it. Yeah.
I dispute that.
I would not have left you out of a knockout pool. You didn't want to be in it.
I'm going to fire my assistants. I need new people.
Something weird happened then.
Clearly somebody was...
You have to pick 2 games Thursday and then 2 games. If you get those right, 2 games Friday, and then from that point it's 1 on. You can buy back in. You've never been in this pool.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is super awkward.
Terrible.
But I think we had 50 people. I would say most of whom I'm not as close to as I am to you. So that's why this is so awkward.
Wow, this is bad.
We only have 6 people left.
Wow, that's amazing.
Gonzaga and Georgetown wiped out everybody.
Georgetown, I mean, I don't know why anybody would pick them based on their recent tournament history.
Because you're trying to save picks for later.
Yeah, that's true.
I think is the move. Like, you don't want to blow Indiana and Miami or whoever right away. But Georgetown was a 2 seed, so it actually seemed like a relatively safe pick. Gonzaga on Saturday just destroyed everybody, though.
Yeah, that was a murder. Every year they were America's darling when they were Cinderella, and when they were number 1, everybody didn't like them, and I guess everybody was right.
You're coming next year to the March Madness live stream if we do it again.
All right. If we do it again, all right.
Well, if we do it again, I'm still hoping there were no ramifications. Nothing's come out yet.
Right.
You get a little groggy around hour 6.
Yeah, I remember the days when you used to do the live blog, and it's taxing. It's an early start on the West Coast, 9 a.m., and it's a long day.
I attacked the country of France on Friday afternoon.
Really?
I don't know what happened. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Most people that have attacked France since about 1815 haven't had any difficulties. I'm sure you'll be fine. Look, now I've done it.
Did you watch House of Cards?
No, I've been told about it, but I haven't watched it.
You know, it's a political...
I know, Kevin Spacey's in it. Yeah, it's a political thing, yes. I should check it out. The one that my wife wants us to watch is, what the heck's it called? The Americans.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are in that.
So I think I'm going to get into that over the summer because we love Justified, and they advertise The Americans heavily during Justified. So I think that's going to be the next one we catch up on.
I watched the first Americans, loved it, and have the last 6 on my DVR.
There you go.
But
I was worried that you would find yourself rooting for the KGB, and I didn't want to do that, but then I'm told that you really don't.
House of Cards, Netflix. The whole Netflix thing's a little weird, but if you have Apple TV, which is a great device that I recommend, then it's a lot easier to navigate.
Yeah.
It's one of those where you rip off one and you think you're only going to watch one, but then you watch 3.
That's how I was when I started watching Mad Men.
Yeah,
like
that's
the equivalent of a book that you can't put down.
Yeah, and The Wire was like that. There's certain shows that are like that. I guess Lost was like that on if you binge watched them, but I watched Lost one at a time. But certain shows just lend itself, and House of Cards was definitely like that. I'm still not 100% sure how I feel about Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
He was great in American Beauty. I thought, obviously, great in The Usual Suspects, which I ruined for you almost 20 years ago.
Still bitter, yes.
Liked him in 7.
I don't know how good he was in that because I was ruined from the beginning.
Yeah, you watched it with a chip on your shoulder the whole time.
True.
But sometimes he's a little too precious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little too precious. A little too pleased with himself. Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely is proud of himself.
So it's worth watching. I like the whole Washington. I like anything with Washington where there's like, first of all, they have this one character that you'll love named Peter Russo, who's one of those, like, he's on the rise, but he's got some demons, and every once in a while he goes off the wagon. This isn't a spoiler alert, by the way. All this stuff happens in the first episode. But he's one of those guys who are like, oh, Peter, hold it together. And I really enjoy him. And I enjoy Robin Wright, who I've always been attracted to ever since the days of Santa Barbara.
That's right. I remember being a youth, and my mother watched that soap opera and seeing her early work.
She was like so wildly overqualified to be on a soap opera. She was probably the most beautiful person who's ever existed as an 18-year-old, and then went on to win that title in The Princess Bride once and for all.
Yes.
But
she was kind of the Jackie Rogers Jr. of acting prospects back then.
So Johnny, Yankees. When is opening day? Sunday?
Yeah, Monday, April 1st. Yankees, Red Sox. Although I think there's rain in the forecast, so
I have
maybe
my AL keeper draft coming up. Give me 2 Yankees to avoid and 2 Yankees to take.
Only 2 to avoid.
Or give me so avoid the whole team except for these 2 guys.
Well, I would take Cano because he's playing for a contract.
Oh,
you can never go wrong with Robbie Cano.
Yeah.
And Sabathia, I would take Sabathia. He's off of arthroscopic surgery in his elbow and back strong. And Hardy, I'd go for him.
What does Hardy mean?
I don't know. Like he'll give you a lot of innings. He's an innings eater, but he's reliable. Reliable.
Eats heartily.
And 2 guys to avoid. I'm down on Euclid. I would stay away from him, although he's had a strong spring.
I think Euclid is going to be good for you.
I got a troubling report yesterday. I think it was on Twitter about Travis Hafner, Pronk, who's like 4 for 500 or something in spring training, but 2 of the 4 are home runs or something. 4 for 500 is a slight exaggeration, but he's barely made contact. But when he does, he hits it a mile. But that's few and far between.
I'm not sure I'd be counting on Pronk.
No, I know that might have been. Pronk's ability or lack thereof in spring training may have also led to the Vernon Wells trade.
What about the ageless Mariano Rivera?
Oh, you can always go with Rivera, sure. You can't go wrong there. I just didn't know how much saves were worth in your league.
You know when you can't go with him? When you spend $23 on him and then he gets hurt in the first month like he did last year. That's
Shaggy flies in the outfield. Yeah.
Or when did that happen? Mid-April?
It was in April, yeah.
So we're probably not going to talk to you again before the season starts.
Oh, okay.
Give us your final prediction.
For the Yankees?
Yeah.
Well, I told you, I think when we spoke, was it last week or the week before, that I think they're going to be better than people expect. And I'm, it's like, it's the old cliched clubhouse bulletin board stuff. But I read some articles today about this that were just like, from Yahoo, frankly, about the Vernon Wells trade. And, the people are normally Yankee haters, but these other AL executives saying they could finish in last place, the AL East. And I mean, that's just a farce. It's not true. They're not going to finish in last. And I think they're going to win the AL East. I'm going to throw it out there.
Is that a homer pick, or you genuinely think that?
91 games. They have a good pitching staff. They're going to weather the storm of the early season injuries, and they're going to be solid.
So you're going to say
going to be good. Gardner's going to be good. They're going to get on base. They're going to play National League ball. When Granderson comes back, their outfield is going to catch everything that is hit anywhere near them or anywhere in the outfield. And Cano's playing for a contract. Jeter will come back and be Jeter. And, their pitching staff is great in the bullpen and rotation. I feel good.
So you think 91 wins and you win the AL East?
Yeah. Because it's a tough, the Blue Jays are improved. I'll believe it when I see it, that the Blue Jays are really going to be as good as all these Toronto tweeters believe. But and the Red Sox are awful, and Baltimore is, I don't believe what they did last year. And the Rays are always dangerous, but they don't really scare me either.
I think
they have no offense either.
I think it's Tampa and the Yanks.
Yeah, I think these reports of the Yankees' demise it's just wishful thinking in a lot of ways. Reports of their demise are greatly exaggerated.
Well, because you're going to be able to throw the ball.
Huh?
You could still throw the ball, which is half the game.
It all comes down to pitching.
Yeah.
It all comes down to pitching. In the past couple of years, they've been too reliant on the home run, according to everybody, and that's not going to be the problem this year.
And you can always find offense as the season goes along. It's much harder to find pitching.
I mean, if they're in the hunt, they're going to pull the trigger on somebody. They've got some prospects. There'll be teams that are looking to dump money. So, they can, if they're willing to take on $13 million for Vernon Wells, maybe later in the season, if they're in the hunt, they'll be willing to take on money for somebody who's actually competent.
Tampa's over-under is like 86. It continues to be insulting. Every year it's like 5 wins off.
Right around 88, 89, except for the Red Sox.
Tampa's got a great pitching staff again. And that Myers is going to come up. Longoria is going to have a huge comeback here. Like, they're going to be there like they always are. It's Joe Madden. Right. Joe Madden doesn't manage an 82 and 80 team or whatever.
I think the Blue Jays are wildly overrated. Overrated.
They have that look, right? The coming out of the gate not doing well. What's wrong with the Blue Jays?
Right.
I thought they were going to be good. Why are they 9-11? Yeah, I agree.
Do you remember all the way back to last year when the Marlins went out and got Reyes and Burley and all these guys, and everybody was like, look out for the Marlins, pencil them in for the World Series. They imploded right out of the gate with these guys.
Yes.
So now you're telling me the Blue Jays are going to be great because they got, 2/3 of an awful Marlins team? Come on. Reyes
And Brett
never
Lowry started the season out in the DL.
Yeah.
Like, it's these little things, and all of a sudden you're 9-12 and everybody's freaking out. And
Right.
they're also in a hard division and have not had a lot of success. New manager. There's a lot going on with the Blue Jays. I'm not sold. I'm sold on the Rays.
Love playing in Toronto. It's cold. It's cold here in Connecticut. It's going to be cold in Toronto for like the first month of the season. Guys
It's going
don't
to be
want to play
really
up there.
It's going to be really cold after Gino Auriemma gets knocked out. Then you'll really feel the chill. You'll feel the chill in the air, Johnny. Johnny, we'll talk to you after the season starts.
All right, sounds good.
I look forward to the first Red Sox Yankees holy war as Jackie Bradley goes 15 for 20 in the series. It's going to be magical.
Are you talking about when Portland plays against Scranton?
No, I'm talking about the jackpot wad, Jackie Bradley Jr. You're going to learn to love him, Johnny.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.